Welcome, everybody, to this, our fifth episode of Walk the Talk. Today, our topic is the importance of intuition for our children. And this is one that Marilise brought to me that I think is a very good thing for us to just think about how much we as parents or adults use our own intuition. So much of our intuition is kind of knocked out of us when we are children, and Marilise is going to speak to a little bit of the research behind that. But how often do you really go deep into yourself to think about your own thinking, to test your gut feeling about something, and whether you have a sense of I'm on the right track or I'm not quite on the right track, and being able to feel confident that you know yourself well enough that you're able to trust those impulses or those little messages or those whispers that you get, to feel like, yes, I know how to make this decision. I know what's going to be the right thing for me or the right thing for my family. So one thing that we do know is our education system doesn't help our children be able to work with their intuition at all. That's not something that's learned at school. It's not a learned behavior, but it is something that we can model as parents. And I'm going to speak to how important that is for us to help our teenagers with, but I'm going to invite Marilise to give us the perspective from the younger years and what she then brought to me this morning as the idea for the topic of this conversation.
Thank you so much, Isla. Yes, we are talking about intuition because I feel it's such an important thing that a lot of people have lost confidence in. A lot of people feeling very disorientated later on in life because they don't know anymore. They don't know how to make sense of what's happening around them, what they're feeling inside of them, because through our schooling system, our educational system, the way we were brought up in our families, based on what was regarded as proper and not proper, they lost sight of what is it that they really feel inside of themselves. And especially when we're working with smaller children, it's so important for them to be able to recognize that, because the one organization that I'm working with on child safety, they call it the inner harm alarm. If something inside of you is not making you feel good, it's making you feel icky or scared or unsure of yourself, you have to pay attention to it. You can't switch it off. So, and as parents, we are often in a rush, and your child says, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling whatever. And there's like, honey, there's no time to deal with that now. You're fine. Everything will be fine. Just know that you're fine. But that's not really the thing that builds confidence in children. They need to understand what is happening inside of themselves. So that is why I thought it would be a good topic today, because it actually goes for all of us. Whether you are 5 or 15 or 25 or 55, there are certain things happening inside of yourself that you need to be aware of. And that's why I thought it would be a good idea to just discuss that today.
Yes, and I agree with you totally. I think we miss, as children, we have it, and then the system, remembering the fact that 0 to 5 or 7, we are unconscious. All the data is coming into the brain without any filtering system. So we're learning everything from our environment and the people around us. And therefore, if we're being told as we feel sad or angry or upset, if those feelings are not being validated, our intuition says, "Oh, I must be wrong." Yes. So we've got a signaling system that is there to protect us and look after us, which we've been given. It's our sort of God-given right to have that. And yet everything around us is telling us not to trust it. So finding our way back there is really important. I agree with you. It's really important. But maybe if we didn't ever lose it in the first place,
That's
wouldn't
well,
that be,
that's
that would
why
be the
we are
key.
here. That's why we are here, because we just want to remind you as parents of the importance of this first and foremost. And secondly, how can you try and really build this more into your child, help them see the value of it and not lose sight of the importance of it. And we spoke about problem solving and confidence, we spoke about in previous 2 weeks. And those are both things that do help you help your child not lose sight of the value of that intuition. So, when it comes to confidence, intuition really helps them to develop that self-reliance by trusting in their own judgment, understanding what they're feeling and trusting that. And it helps build confidence as they learn to make decisions independently, which again reminds us of what we spoke about last week, I think, about the problem solving. Intuition allows children to quickly assess situations and find creative solutions because there's not always someone around to help them think. So the more they can, the more you can help them think through this thing and what would be a good outcome, the more they can start doing that themselves as they get older, because it helps them develop their logical thinking by providing that additional layer of insight. And then just the third thing quickly, and then we can see how that finds the same expression in teenage years. But that emotional awareness and regulation is so important. So everyone's talking about developing the emotional intelligence, etc. With the understanding that intuitive children are more in tune with those emotions, which leads to better emotional regulation. So when they start feeling, oh gosh, I feel icky, I feel sad, I feel scared, I feel all these things, what do I do with it? And I'm going to get to a very, very simple thing that you can teach them just now. But just based on that, Isla, what, in the teenage years, what would you like to add to that? How can that develop into more?
In the teenage years, you've just had a more experience in that being shut down. Is the reality of what happens. And I know that, one of the things that I noticed, especially with my younger son, his intuition was very high. It was highly developed as a sensitive child, that was always there. But what was a challenge for him was that he was not getting those feelings validated. And I have to admit that I wasn't good at validating them for him either. I have learned so much on my journey that thank God I'm able to share now. But because I was being that overprotective bear mama, it's like, I don't want you to have these feelings, because if you don't feel good, I don't feel good.
Exactly.
Big problem there. It's not about me, it's about him. But I think that we as parents have a tendency to override those feelings for kids as well. Because we don't want them to feel that. And that intuition, the way it shows up often for us, is exactly as you're saying. I feel icky, I don't feel good. Instead of being able to really support those feelings, those emotions when they show up, and validate them and say, that must, I can imagine it doesn't feel good to feel like that. Is there anything that I could do or we could do together that would help in this situation? So be curious, explore more, but the importance of validating, because if we're not the ones, we, the parents, aren't validating, nobody else is validating out there, for sure and for certain. Nobody else is doing it. So us doing it for our kids, and especially in those teenage years, because once we start to be concerned about peers, about our kids maybe getting into trouble, our kids taking a wrong turn, if we're not helping them to know when that is a wrong turn, or to know when they find themselves with a group that they don't feel good, or they shouldn't get into that car, or all of these things that show up that we are rightly concerned about in the teenagers, we're not with them all the time. If we can't help them develop their intuition for what's good for them or not good for them, then we're not doing our job in protecting them. So this intuition piece is actually truly a piece of protection that we can look at. How do we support it with that frame of reference?
Absolutely. And also, the more you understand yourself, so it's also a way to help them understand from early on, who am I? If I feel like this, why do I feel like this? To help them understand, whereas, before we would say, no, you're not feeling that, you're feeling this, this is how it works. To actually help them understand more of what is happening inside themselves, I think is a wonderful way to help protect them, because you know that wherever that child finds himself, they know who they are. They know how to process the feelings inside of them. They know what to do with that, and therefore we can trust that they will make the correct decisions. So I have a very simple little exercise that you can do with your little ones that I think throughout, might be helpful. And it's HUG. The acronym, it's HUG. It's an acronym for hear, understand, and go. And the thing is, even if they're little and you're like, something's not right, what's the first thing that you need? What's the first thing that a child comes to? Mommy, I feel scared. It's like, oh, let me give you a hug. Let me hold you. Or I'm not comfortable with this. I really need a hug. It's like that hug thing, which I think, and to even go into that action, something's not right inside of you. Give yourself a hug and think, what does hug mean? So hearing is, first of all, thinking, what is my body trying to tell me? What am I feeling here? Is it sadness? Is it fear? Is it insecurity? What is it? Is it joy? I mean, it could be a good thing as well. It's like, oh, I'm so excited. So, that little hug thing. So here, then understand, based on what you know, based on what is happening outside of your body, based on what you're seeing, try and understand why you're feeling this way. And then once you have an idea, then go. Then you feel more confidence to go and deal with it correctly. And I think that's such a simple way to just stop in the moment to try and figure out, why is this? Because I think the more we help them just take a moment, not just automatically go and do what the friends are doing, or automatically go and find a rule that is going to give you the assurance that you need in the moment, but to actually listen to your body, because we were so wonderfully made. Most of what we need is actually already inside of ourselves. We just need to learn how to tap into that more. So that was a quick little exercise that I hope is going to help you, regardless of age, to be able to convey that to your child. Just remind them of that. What do you think?
I love that. I love that idea. Hug is so simple. One of the things that I teach, and I teach this to adults. So I teach couples to have a word that is something that is between them, that basically, as soon as one uses it with the other, it immediately says stop. So things are not going well, there's some kind of conflict, or people are being wind up or feeling judged or whatever in a relationship. And it could be, often it's kind of like pickle, or fudge sundae, or dog poop. It could be anything, but something that you're allowed to say it to each other, and the meaning is stop here now, let's regroup, let's step back, let's figure out what's actually going on here. But I love that as an acronym to use in the same context, especially between parents and kids of any age. This hug being as soon as I say this word, hug, the implication is it's time to stop, and it's time to just take that pause and think, reflect, what's going on? How do I feel about what's going on, and what am I going to do about it?
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's
and
it's good for all. It's good for all ages, as you say.
It's so simple. It's easy to remember. It's actually something that most of us want in a situation where we don't feel quite sure of ourselves. And it actually helps you just listen to your intuition. What am I feeling and why am I feeling this? Because if you can just get beyond that, try and figure that out for yourself, you'll know exactly what to do about it based on who you are. So that's a good way to just try and regulate ourselves a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So I kind of came up with just a few tips for how parents can support their teenagers finding that core of intuition again. Just ways in which they can help their kids. And so if I can just let me just give some of these ideas. So one, there are all things we've sort of touched on, but encourage self-reflection. Encourage that opportunity to think about your thinking without any judgment or any criticism or any expectation of an answer coming back that you, the parent, want to hear. None of that. It's not about that at all. It's just encouraging those moments of self-reflection, and don't even ask the question of what came out of it unless your child wants to share. So a private moment for the child. Validate their feelings. We've already talked about that, without trying to fix anything. Just, I see you're upset, or I hear things are not going well, whatever it is, and make it all about you. I see, I hear, not you are acting like this, or you are feeling. You don't know, we don't know what anybody else is feeling. That's all mind reading. We can only interpret what we see and feel ourselves. So validate it from our perspective. Model the intuitive behavior. So find ways of demonstrating when you yourself are acting on, this doesn't feel right to me. Or I went to the doctor today, and when I was waiting for the doctor, I heard this, and somehow it just didn't land right. Didn't feel right to me. I wonder what, I'm going to go do some research now. All of that is modeling what is going to be really helpful for teenagers. Promote open communication. That's kind of an obvious one. We talk about that a lot. And then teach mindfulness practices. We haven't really talked about that yet in our conversations, but teaching kids how to self-regulate, the tools that are out there. We have these mindfulness tools. We have ways of asking ourselves, calming ourselves, asking ourselves good questions. Teach them to breathe, to slow their monkey mind. Teach them some skills that are out there for all of us, to be able to calm ourselves, to be able to find a new place to act from. So journaling, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, these things are wonderful for our kids, as they're wonderful for us as adults. So that's just a few ideas of how parents can actually support their teenagers becoming more intuitive, or remembering those intuitive skills that they already have.
And I so agree with you. And just one thing, it begins and it ends with curiosity, which is something that I think we often forget because of lack of time, overwhelm, all those things. To not lose your curiosity, and it actually starts with yourself. It's like, wow, that's interesting. I haven't thought of that before. What do I feel about it and what am I going to do about it? Is just a wonderful way to try and not confine yourself to the system or the regulations or whatever that you've been bound to, but actually try and reconnect with yourself on that level, that your intuition is always fueled and not confined. So I think that will help us, all of us, to understand more about what's happening inside of us and why that is.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Mm.
Do you have any other tips that you want to share with
There are so
parents?
many that we can actually share, especially based on who the child is, because for every type of person, there are so many, but I know we've got to try and keep this short. So if parents want more tips based on what they are seeing in their child or any area where they're not quite sure what to do with that, please write to us or drop a comment below so that we can keep this conversation going, because I think this is a topic that we all can learn more from. So please do that. Yes.
Yes,
Mm,
yes, I
mm,
agree. I agree. I actually did a post this morning on exactly
mm.
that, on beginner's mind and curiosity.
Fantastic.
It's a big topic, and
Mm,
it's one
mm,
that as parents, as adults, it's hard for us because we're moving a million miles an hour. But if we can remember some of these great skills that are there, that will add to our own toolbox
mm,
of helping ourselves be more calm, less chaotic.
mm.
It's going to be good for us, but it's also
Mm.
good for our kids.
Yeah, and not to respond automatically to the external, but actually try and respond to the internal first, because that's why I think it's also easier to gauge, okay, what is really happening here and how does it affect me? And then based on that. So just it doesn't just become an emergency situation every time, but it actually, you are able to start leading with what is inside you. Mm.
Well, thank you, Marilise. Thank
Thank
you,
you so
those
much.
parents, caregivers, those wonderful
Mm.
people who have joined us and are
Mm.
listening. And please, as Marilise says, drop a comment under the video here, and connect with us. Our email addresses are below, and we absolutely would love to hear from you and continue this conversation.
Thank
So
you,
I'm going to
Anna.
close us for
Mm.
today, and we'll
Mm.
see you next week for another topic to be determined.
Mm. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.